Hi everyone, I'm Niaz, and thanks for joining me. I wish I was there, but I'm so excited to share snippets of my PhD research, which is being conducted at Research Lab. And through this presentation, I'm going to give you introduction through the heterogeneity and homogeneity in letter shape and rhythm, the context of the complexity and complexity of behavior, complexity in for reading, and at the end, two-dimensional framework. If we define the text rhythm as the distribution of black stroke and white spaces, several parameters influences how this game of black and white is played. We need to believe that rhythm is strongly related to the text color. Once the rhythm change, the color change as well. So the text color is based on the average of the white and black that is presented on the surface and is dependent on the factors that include word spacing, letter width, stroke width, proportion, and counter size. And rhythm can change according to the same design parameters. Utilizing these parameters with the intention of forming words that the text rhythm is not solely a subjective of just a type designer. Considering reading tasks and reading audiences or the specific target groups makes designer more critical about how they shape the word. However, in Arabic typography, due to this inherent cursive, the variation in design parameters is more diverse than these formal parameters. Here in this research, I focus on Arabic NAS typographic style, which given its prominence in printed text. In type design, there is two fundamental ways to influence legibility, the letter shapes and the rhythm, created by their sequences. Both aspects can be examined in terms of homogeneity and heterogeneity. This framework was analyzed by Bessemans in Latin script, and I'm expanding it in Arabic script, given its unique visual characteristic of script. And the concept can be developed a different way. Emphasizing the homogeneity of the means that the letters should be positioned next to each other without any conflict. On the other hand, it is also important to emphasize heterogeneity when it comes to letter shapes. Heterogeneity can be demonstrated by making the letters less similar to one another. In other words, this ensures that similar letters are easily distinguished from each other. In legibility studies of Latin script, this focus on rhythm preliminary emphasizes the vertical alignment of the letters, which is determined by the sequence in vertical letters stroke. However, in Arabic, due to connectivity and letter strings, we have horizontal emphasis in the text, which is repetitive. Arabic rhythm is flow-based structure dictated by controlled deviation from the baseline. In Nas calligraphy, shapes were altered to improve the flow of the letter connections along the line for the better distinguished for the similar letter shapes. The complex behavior has an impact on the word's profile, making it so instinctive, which can be seen here in this slide. The NAS writing style has seen significant technical advancement throughout its typographic history. Currently, we are in a highly evolved stage of script recognition and practice. It is crucial to understand the associated complexities to utilize this style more systematically within the current heterogeneity and homogeneity framework. Context of complexity in Arabic typography can come from orthographic complexity. The cursive nature of Arabic script joins letters with their neighbors in continuous flow. Letters take different forms depending on their position in the word, and there is no differentiation between block letters and cursive writing, which in English and Latin-based languages, cursive is optional. The word marhaba in this slide meaning hello, is not five independent shape. It's a single connected form, a calligraphic unit where the shape is shape of each letter depends on its position in a word and the relationship to the adjacent letter. This positional dependency is a fundamental architectural difference. We have continuation streams of letter, means that we read through the letter strings. Also dots in themselves don't have phonetic values, but comprise an integral parts of the letters. For example, letters having a similar or even identical structure are distinguished on the basis of the existence, location, and number of dots. Short vowels in Arabic scripts are written as optional diacritic marks rather than full letters. While they add visual density and texture to the page, they are typically omitted in text meant for fluent readers. Adult readers, because the script relies heavily on the reader's prior vocabulary knowledge. Readers use a sentence's context to automatically fill in the missing sounds. Another issue of complexity arises when addressing the transition from manuscript NAS to the digital typeset forms. The complexity indicates the word formation complexity in different interpretation of typographical NAS. NAS, whether it is in formal or stylistic version like Quran or democratic version or printed early version, was used to commit to the certain behavioral complexity to the script. The transition journey and the simplification process driven by publishing demand have left legacy of unique visual characteristics. This interaction between these characteristics and the capabilities of modern open type technologies for calligraphy manuscript features has significantly influenced contemporary design practice, enabling design with a very large character set. In terms of design, this has also opened many doors for improving the quality of available typefaces in different reading materials. Another complexity arises from a script's behavior in calligraphic formats. In calligraphy, some Arabic letters require connection from above rather than the baseline and behave differently. When we start designing an Arabic typeface in Glyphs app, the legacy of simplification lands us starting the design with basic shapes. And if we need to add any complex behavior through the letter strings and add calligraphic complex behavior to this design, then the complexity of design increase. And this complexity can occur in four optional oppositional forms. An important aspect of NAS calligraphic is something that when we call them pith. This is the literary extension that produce many different sounds based on the number and position of the dots that follow. In other words, there may be 3-5 words with the teeth, 3-4-5 different teeth following each other to make a word. And if they are all consistently drawn or written, they would be very hard to read or distinguish. So there has to be a system of variation in height and shape of the teeth, which will immediately provide a visual indication of how many teeth are there and aid for their recognition. The other complexity is letter meme, which has most heterogeneous shapes and differentiation alternates in NAS depending on its position in the word. Adding complexity to the basic design occurs through deviation from the baseline. One complex behavior is stroke transition, which features a small high rise from the baseline. The typographical solution for this behavior is ligature. Another stroke transformation occurs in the configuration of some letters with the final letters which can also be the straight stroke in the ligature-less version goes to the wave shape. This configuration happens when the letters are compressed. Also, this transformation is not always changing the stroke to the wave or rising from the baseline. It can also make the two letters closer to each other, like these examples. The other aspect of the behavioral complexity is elongation. In Arabic calligraphy, this behavior helps arrange words within each line, practice now used in justification. Elongation involves various behavior. One is called tatwil. The other one is swoosh, whether some characters stretch beautifully along the baseline. The other configuration is stacking or cascading, when letters are jumping on top of each other and rising in y-axis. This behavior has the potential to rise to 2-3 characters or more. But in typography and of interest of my research, when we are talking about reading a long text, we don't go above the aleph size. The other behavioral complexity is that we can mix these features to form a word, and we can use ligatures with swooshes, compression, elongation, or just elongation within the basic shapes, which directly change the letter shape, also affect the rhythm of the text. As shown in this slide, above the slide, when the words are formed from these behaviors, some characters come closer together to each other and some other gets wider. So if you compare it with the bottom word, which is the same word with the basic shapes and no complex behavior, and the character are distributed evenly. On top, we have alternating rhythm, while in bottom, we see the monotonous even rhythm. The other complexity is complexity in or for reading. Earlier, Chahine used reading speed as a legibility metric for examining to the influence of the word formation complexity across 3 distinct typographical nasal style: simplified, traditional, and dynamic. Using eye tracking technology, her foundational study revealed that more complex typographical style led to longer fixation duration because of deeper encoding, thereby slowing the reader's reading speed. This investigation provides valuable insight into how typographical complexity affects visual processing during the reading, highlighting the importance of the design choice and enhancing legibility. However, another study indicates that increasing calligraphic complexity through letter compression and extension and justification enhance both reading speed and comprehension. This is quite contradictory to the previous eye tracking on more complex style. The inconsistency in reading speed result, which may stem from differences in target groups or research methodology, has motivated me to investigate further to achieve systematic control over the complex parameters. In our rapidly evolving technological landscape, it is essential to conduct more objective investigation into how typographical advancements can be effectively applied to the reading and ultimately for the educational context. Numerous studies have examined the relationship between text format, reading, and learning outcomes. However, the findings remain inconsistent and lack typographical knowledge, highlighting the need for further research. One of these important insights is the concept of desirable difficulties. These strategies are learning conditions that make initial learning more challenging, but also enhance long-term retention, called desired difficulties, can also arise from stimulus perceptual characteristic. This associated benefits is called disfluency effect. Before I discuss my two-dimensional framework, which is aimed to testing this theory, I will explain what this theory is about. This fluency effect is when you add the text that is intentionally harder to read and remember it longer. Sorry, I have a hand gesture. I try to lose less. The disfluency effect is when you read a text that is intentionally harder to read and remember it longer. This effect may impact a range of cognitive process and central to typographic presentation, perceptual fluency. Perceptual fluency is affected by visual aspect of typography, including features related to how clear and easy letters and words are recognized. This includes features such as presentation surface, visual complexity of the typeface, and issues related to type size, contrast, and space. Using manipulated handwriting and systematic variable isolation approach, this study suggests a possible moderating factor in the disfluency effect. The research suggested that easy to read handwritten words are better remembered than hard to read ones. What makes handwriting disfluent? According to Geller, it is that handwriting differs from typography in three key ways. It is more ambiguous, non-segmented, and the same letters can take different physical forms in different contexts. Arabic script exhibit a connectivity, non-segmented, and contextual letter forms, both handwritten and printed forms. That this quality makes Arabic script a valid tool for manipulating perceptual fluency to test the desired effect of this fluency. Despite the strong methodology used in the study examining the disfluency effect, there remains insufficient external validity compared to modern educational learning materials and lacks the typographical knowledge. Two-dimensional framework in this research isolate intercharacter spacing. In 2 dimensions, we quantify the types of complex behavior we want to add to the text, and by varying letter shape, change their rhythm. Remember, I said word shapes is important. The profile of the word can be changed by complex behavior. It is important to consider whether we want everything to align on the baseline or to add complexity while keeping them on the same baseline along the x-axis, or to introduce an additional layer of complexity either above the baseline or below. This systematic manipulation of horizontal elongation and comprehension on the x-axis and vertical stacking and stroke shift on the y-axis, considering contextual letter forms which occurs in four positions. Thereby allowing precise adjustment to the text rhythm through heterogeneity of the letter shapes. Developing this framework when we have the word without any complex behavior on top of the slide, it is in its most homogeneous form. And when we add elongation via tatfil and swashes in these basic forms, we have this letter shape more heterogeneous. Another one is that when we want to raise the behavior and along the y-axis, we add the cascaded ligature here in the middle of the screen with compression. Or when we can also have another configuration by adding the swash at the end. Because in Arabic, when Arabic calligraphy, when everything that gets condensed and density and gravity of the density gets high, there is a relief but with swashes or this elongation, giving this space through the x-axis in line justification. Another is that we go one level down from the baseline by adding mean variation in our letters configuration with letter lam. And also to control the spacing between characters, you can also use the stroke shift behavioral complexity. This allows that the space to vary along the y-axis. At the bottom of the screen, the same behavior is configured with the tat wheel, providing different visual characteristics to the same word. The 4 parameters described above, which contributed to the complex behavior of Arabic script, represent various options in Arabic typography. This understanding allows us to define complexity more clearly and gives designers and researchers control over the level of intricacy they choose to incorporate into their design practice or experiment. Not all of these complex typographic behavior improve legibility. Some brings visual complexity like stackings because they brings density to the texture, and some such as variation in teeth height may enhance recognition in similar letter shapes. These parameters are commonly used in calligraphy, similar to what we now refer to as justification in typography by using a stylistic feature, contextual alternates, ligatures, which use optionally in text production. Next step would be testing this framework to see if there is disfluency effect. Here is the reference I've used for this presentation, and thanks for listening.
You can mute then. Okay. Okay.
Yes. Hello. Thank
Hi.
you for that very nice presentation. I have just one question or suggestion. It's very nice to use the traditional Naskhi ligatures, which were already described in Faulman in 1880 and which you can find in the Cairo cases. But you should have a system that will deactivate ligatures whenever you have tashkil, because the problem is that on a ligature, when you put a tashkil either over or under the ligature, then you don't know immediately what letter is concerned. So also in a small type, of course, you will deactivate ligatures for footnotes and so on, but also in the case of tashkil. So I don't know if you have thought of that.
Thanks for your question. Actually, I have to tell you that I'm not focusing on technical issues, and which there are a lot of potential in this script, and there are so many scholars that thanks to them I could also improve my research. The font that I've used already is sorry, Sakal Kitab from Mamoun, one of my committee members. And I use it, and for this research, I'm developing my own typeface. I know what you mean. There are some problems in when you use this stylistic feature or this behavior, these technical issues happen, and I would consider them for sure for my research. But for now, I don't have a answer to your question, unfortunately, because it's too technical for me.
Okay, and then a more visual than technical question. So when you have a tatwil, let's say a quite long tatwil, and you want to put a fatha or a kasra under it, will you put the fatha in the middle of the tatwil, at the beginning, at the end?
Yeah. Actually, in the typography, in the calligraphy, we should always reference to calligraphy because as the Arabic script readers, I'm Persian. Actually, I read Persian language.
I noticed from the examples that they are in
Yeah,
Persian.
but I have to tell you that if we back to the calligraphy and to the history, we will see this variation, and each region also have their own visual habits. Mostly, as what I used to read is above if the letter has the dot, it goes above the dot, or not exactly in the elongated version. It always goes to because the most data from the letter comes from the right. And I can also refer you to one of the studies. It's the graphic complexity of the scripts. They really nicely analyze 131 scripts. And if you make the half of each letters, the first half, when you are reading it from us, we are reading it from right to left. The most important data of the letter is come from the half right. So I think if you want to really decipher what this word and the vowels are connected to which letter, it's better to put it at the right half.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Yannis. Any thoughts, questions, comments, insights? Would you have one?
Yeah, please come here so we can. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Very interesting. I was wondering, yes, about the other languages, how other traditions in other cultures. How would you treat this then? You mentioned that you were doing on Persian, but what about other languages and other traditions?
Yeah, actually, it's a really good question. When it comes to, because I'm going to test the disfluency effect and the complexity effect on the comprehension. So it is always good to see what people in that region are used to read in a daily basis. For my case, for example, in educational purpose, you barely see books with this type of behavior. So it is good to see, for me, to test it, to see for sure the familiarity effect of the letter shape that I'm going to use and the reading habits of the target group I'm testing. For the Persian, for sure, I know if I use ligatures or this elongation in educational purpose book, the readers would be critical on them, and they would, I really wonder to see if it has impact on the comprehension, if it boosts the comprehension or reduce the reading time, which is next step. And I hope that I have answer for the next presentation soon.
Thank you, Niaz.
Yeah.
We do have time for one last question, which is probably going to be me. I'm curious about. I'm curious if you have tested a range of ages, because it's this is on a very micro level.
Yeah.
I am relating on this level because I did some legibility, but in terms of print advertisements and type was much bigger, and it wasn't on such a minute little level. But this feels like it could be something that is affected by a reader's age. Yeah.
For sure. I'm testing with the adult skilled reader because I know they can tolerate the complexity, and I'm testing that because already Nadine tested this complexity with the elementary school. So, and the other study that I showed was with adult readers. And I think I want to see if systematically we isolate these parameters, how they reflect, and which of these complex parameters have this fluent effect. So my target group would be adult readers and mostly university students.
Sounds amazing. I look forward to reading more on your research.
Thanks for your
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.